Hey, everybody, welcome. Here I am from my hotel room in Michigan, and we're going to have yet another great late night conversation. Let's go.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. I am so glad to be here with you tonight. I hope you can hear me all right. I don't have my normal mic, but I'm here in my hotel room in Michigan because I'm here, as I told you all I would be here. I'm here because I'm going to be seeing, you should change into your heavy metal one. My heavy metal what? But anyway, I'm going to be going to this event, this anti-war event with Joe Kent. It looks like Garland Nixon is not going to be here. He was streaming earlier, explained that something came up. He wasn't able to come out. But it looks like Scott Horton, some prominent libertarians and others are going to be here. And so is Joe Kent. So I'm here in Michigan, looking forward to the event. And from my hotel room here, we're going to have yet another great late night chat. We're going to follow our normal format, which is first the opening remarks, followed by the roll call. And then after that, I will answer any questions that you have. Now, the best way to send questions is to go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. That's the absolute best way to send questions, but we're monetized. So super chats are accepted. We do take super chats if you want to send a super chat. You can also do Rumble rants if you're on the Rumble. You can cash app me at Caleb Maupin 22. And don't know how late we're going to be on here tonight, but we'll have a little chat. Why not? Why not have a little conversation? In terms of announcements, the Center for Political Innovation is our organization, and we are having our national 7-day training program coming up August 12th through 19th. And it's going to be pretty awesome. So if you would like to attend that, and get to know us better, if you're already a member of CPI and you haven't yet gotten your accreditation, or if you are interested in joining CPI, want to learn more about us, come to our training program, our 7-day training program in Chicago. It's going to be very awesome. You can register right there. That's the registration form. Should be pretty cool. Join us in August, be part of our anti-imperialist movement. And I've got a new book out, Imperialism and Anti-Imperialism. That is my new book. It's already selling. Get yourself a copy of it. And I'm happy to go on any podcast or show to talk about it. There's a lot compiled in this very important text. So glad to be there. Glad to be here tonight. Like I said, we'll be following our normal format for the show tonight. So if you've got something for me to talk about in the second half of the show, the best thing to do is go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin and send me your question. You can also super chat because we're monetized and we do accept super chats. And on top of that, you also have the option of doing Rumble rants. You can do Rumble rants. You can do Cash App, Caleb Maupin 22. We accept questions. So send me good questions for the second half of the show. So the big news tonight, the two big items, is that apparently there is some kind of possible deal in ending war with Iran. And the deal sounds like, who knows what's really going on? There's been many times where Trump says, "Oh, we're making progress, we're doing well with Iran," and then he turns around and attacks Iran. in the right afterwards. So I don't know. I'm not saying it ain't over till it's over, and I don't trust this administration that has backstabbed Iran many times as negotiations are taking place. But it appears some kind of agreement. This is only the 100th possible deal since the war began. That's a good way of putting it. I mean, so I don't know what to believe. I hope that that's the case. And honestly, if, at the terms of the deal that we're hearing from the Iranian Foreign Ministry, they indicate that Iran will maintain control over the Strait of Hormuz, though it'll be open. And the United States will, to some degree or other, withdraw from the region surrounding Iran, and that the nuclear issue is not being discussed at this time. Iran's nuclear program or nuclear issue is not on the table, that some kind of deal is being made with Iran, and it doesn't involve the nuclear issue. And the USA will withdraw significantly from the region, and the Strait of Hormuz will open. Now, if this does indeed go through, and we do see an end to the conflict, I will say, this is the Houthis. This is Ansar Allah, because the Strait, the Strait of I don't want to butcher the name of this strait, right? I really don't. I don't want to butcher it. But we have the Strait of Hormuz that's already closed, and the global economy is screaming because the Strait of Hormuz is closed. But there is another strait, right? There's I don't want to butcher it. It's the strait that is close to Yemen. And I will put it on the screen. I actually had a map of the straits. Here, the Strait of Bab al-Mandab. All right. So the Strait of Hormuz is already closed, right? And so all the Saudi oil production and all of that goes on there, it's all closed off by Iran. But it is this second strait, the strait near Yemen. That strait is a strait that the Houthis, Ansar Allah, are prepared to close down. They are prepared. They already had their blockade against Israeli ships in the Red Sea. And the Houthis, Ansar Allah, they were prepared to close down the Strait of Bab al-Mandab. Bab al-Mandab. I just want to say that right. I don't want to butcher it. I don't want to say it wrong. Bab al-Mandab, right? And it appears that if the USA goes ahead and attacks Iran, again, not only will the Strait of Hormuz be closed, but the port of Bab al-Mandab will be closed. And at that point, the global economy screams louder than anyone can imagine. And the Houthis are capable of doing it. They basically forced the USA to withdraw from the Red Sea, 2 years ago. And they have a very, very effective fighting force. They would be able to close the Strait of Bab al-Mandab, and the United States would have a lot of casualties trying to clear it. I mean, the USA hasn't been able to open up the Strait of Hormuz even. And if they had the Strait of Bab al-Mandab was closed, I mean, there would be a large body count of U.S. forces, trying to open up both straits. And that would just be something that the Trump administration would be wildly unpopular for doing. We've already lost some servicemen and women in this conflict. And the conflict is wildly unpopular. Imagine, if the USA were to actually have to send the Navy, or the Navy and the Army to open up both of these straits, the body count would rise. And that would just be devastating for the Trump administration. Their approval ratings are in the toilet right now. And if they ended up having to go battle against the Houthis and the Islamic Revolutionary Guards of Iran, their ratings would be in the toilet. So my hope is that this deal that the Trump administration is proposing, is saying that they're just working on the language. It's done, is basically what we're hearing. That's what we're hearing from the Foreign Ministry of Iran. That's also what we're hearing from the White House. If that is the case, I'm hoping that goes through. And if it is the case, I will say it is the Houthis, Ansar Allah, that did it, because the Houthis are a fighting force that no one in America knows anything about. I wrote a book about them. Thank you for highlighting that, John. I wrote a book, Who Are the Houthis and What Are They Fighting For? This book, I'll just put it on the screen. It's less than 100 pages. It is written in very, very clear language. And this book, we have distributed it in bulk all across America. We have gotten thousands of copies of this into the hands of Americans at Palestine rallies, at mosques, at different parts of the country. And, you know, some people have said to me, well, Caleb, why did you call it Who Are the Houthis and What Are They Fighting For? When they're not called the Houthis. Houthi is kind of an ethnic tribal name. Their real name is Ansar Allah. And I said, for the simple reason that nobody in America knows who Ansar Allah is. If I called it Who Are Ansar Allah, no one would know what that is. But everyone in American media has heard of the Houthis. The Houthis we hear a lot about. We see pictures of them waving their guns on TV, but we know nothing about them. Who are they? Well, I wrote an entire book about the Houthis, and I risked my life on a ship trying to deliver medical aid to Yemen in order to help the people of Yemen as the Saudis blockaded Yemen after the Houthis took power and created their revolutionary committee that took power. And I've done a lot of research. And so I wrote a very popular book explaining who Ansar Allah is. I wrote this book, and we've distributed it all across America. PSL was so threatened. We went to the People's Conference for Palestine last year, last September, near Detroit, also here in Michigan. And the Party for Socialism and Liberation, PSL, was so threatened by our book, they violently removed Noah and myself from their convention for handing out the book for free because they were scared of people seeing it because PSL is a vile organization of people that are not really anti-imperialist, that are agents of the Democrats, and we went to their conference and gave out copies of a book for free. And they violently removed us. But we've distributed this all over the country. We have given out copies of the book. We visited an Islamic center then in Detroit that I know somebody who was friendly with, and they took a number of copies, and we have given it out in many different parts of the country. In Chicago, we've given out this book in bulk, and we have distributed this book. Many places across America. So if you really want to know about the force that it appears the USA is very afraid of them closing down the port of Bab al-Mandab. If you want to learn about them, read our book, Who Are the Houthis and What Are They Fighting For? This book is a basic introduction. There's an audio book you can listen to. You can listen to the audio book of it for free, for no cost. It's just a basic introduction. Ansar Allah is a revolutionary movement inspired by the Islamic Revolution of Iran. It's basically an anti-austerity religious fighting force that developed in the mountainous regions of northern Yemen. And they have stood up to the whole world, and they stood up for the Palestinians when no one else did. And it looks like they may have forced the United States to make a peace treaty to end their conflict with Iran. Their threat, the Houthis' threat to close the port of the Strait of Bab al-Mandab, is probably the deciding factor. Now, we'll see. It hasn't happened yet. And, there's been many times Trump has betrayed his promises. But I will mention this, and this is a really good sign, right? I mean, it's like you can't make this up. Our politicians are so out of touch with the American people. 80% of the American people oppose this war with Iran, don't want this war to be happening. But Ted Cruz, top Republican in Congress, is worried that the war will end. This is what he tweeted out. This is Ted Cruz, right? Look at the polls. 80% of the American people never wanted this war to begin with, want this war to end. Ted Cruz says, I am deeply concerned about what we are hearing about the Iran deal being pushed by some voices in the administration. President Trump's decision to strike Iran was the most consequential decision of his second term. He was right to do so. We achieved more than extraordinary military results, destroying missiles and drones and sinking their enemy. If the results of all of this has been an Iranian regime still run by Islamists who chant death to America, now receiving billions of dollars, being able to enrich uranium and develop nuclear weapons, having control over the Strait of Hormuz, that would be a disastrous mistake. The details are still coming out, and I pray the early reports are wrong, but the fact that Biden's Rob Malley is praising the deal is not encouraging. President Trump believes in peace through strength, and his strong leadership has already made America much safer. He should hold the line, defend America, and force red lines. Well, first of all, I mean, there's so many lies in here. First of all, right? I mean, when it comes to getting nuclear weapons, Iran has never moved in the direction of getting nuclear weapons. They are signatories of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They gave up almost all of their peaceful nuclear energy program, and they've always had every site of their peaceful nuclear energy program monitored 24 hours a day by the International Atomic Energy Agency. So the idea that Iran would come out of this being able to get nuclear weapons, that's absurd, right? When it comes to receiving billions of dollars, the USA has stolen billions of dollars from Iran. And I mean, it's, you know, at the time of the Islamic Revolution, the government of Iran had loads of bank accounts in America, and America froze them. Right. And routinely, Iran will set up bank accounts in different parts of the world, and the US government will figure out that it's their bank account and freeze them. And apparently on the table is that the USA will unfreeze some of Iran's money. That's not giving Iran money. That's giving back what was stolen from them. You know, I mean, that would be like if somebody came to your house, forced you out of your house at gunpoint, you know, and started living in your house, and then the government came in and forced the intruder out, and then people said, "Oh, the government just gave you a house." Well, no, they didn't give you a house. They gave you your house back after someone illegally went in there, and that's the situation. And I mean, and this happens every time. Every time there's some kind of agreement where they unfreeze some of the money Iran has stolen from, these fucking Zionist liars get on there and say, "Oh, the USA just gave billions of dollars to Iran." No, they unstole billions of dollars from Iran. The USA has stolen so much from Iran and from Venezuela and from many countries. I mean, the US government routinely just, you know, puts pressure through the international banking system on countries and steals from countries. And Iran has had so many bank accounts frozen, so many assets frozen, that you know, this is unstealing. The idea is that they would get some of their assets, you know, some of their money that's been frozen by the American government would be given back to them. That's not giving them billions of dollars. You know, I mean, Ted Cruz, it's like he wants nothing unless they violently overthrow the Iranian government. He's not going to be satisfied. Right? You know, he doesn't want Iran run by Islamists who chant death to America. Well, geez, you know, if a country blew up an elementary school in your country and killed over almost 200 underage schoolgirls, might you chant death to that country? You know, I mean, if the USA backed a brutal dictator, the Shah, you know, that killed hundreds of thousands of your people, and then when the people overthrew him in a popular revolution, they welcomed him in and gave him refuge in their country. You know, if the USA had put sanctions on a country that caused people to die because they couldn't get medical care, you know, I mean, do you think there might? I mean, it's like you look at everything that's gone on. When I was in Iran, you know, I saw the Supreme Leader Khamenei speak, and he made clear that when they say death to America, they don't mean death to the American people. They mean death to the system. All right. The Supreme Leader of Iran, Khamenei, I saw him speak in 2015. I went to a rally where he spoke, and he did say we don't want to kill the American people. And I guess I will show you the clip of when I saw Khamenei speak. This is actually from a film about my experiences in Iran, which you can find on the CPI website. If you want to watch the entire film, it's called Iranian Dream. And if you go to the CPI website /films, you can watch the entire film there. So watch the entire film. But I'll show you that clip. But yeah, you can watch the entire film on the CPI website. It's called Iranian Dream, and it's like a feature documentary film that I made about my visit to Iran in 2015, and it ends with me seeing the Supreme Leader speak, where he touched on that phrase, "Death to America." So I will put the clip on. So here we go.
Appointed day came, and I could only get permission in the place of the foreign guests. I had hoped at least my location close to Iran's Supreme Leader.
I was successful. I saw the Supreme Leader. I was able to be just 200 feet away from him. I was able to look up at him right there on the balcony and see his face, see the face of the Iranian Revolution, and be in his presence. The first time that I teared up was when I saw, the Supreme Leader and was able to look at him and just to see him come out and to just see his presence. He has this presence, like you could feel the difference. Even if I couldn't seen him, I would have known when he walked into the room and when he left, even if I were completely blind. You can feel his presence. But the second was to look out on the crowd of people and see, how they responded to him and see how fired up. And I saw that that's who the Iranian Revolution was for. My Iranian dream was to look on the face of the Supreme Leader and see who it was who wrote that letter and come to understand what was behind that beautifully worded letter. Find out what was behind it. Find out what the society that has a leader like that is like. I felt like I was not just looking at the face of one man, I was looking at the face of the Iranian Revolution. I saw with my eyes the Iranian Revolution. I looked at it with my own eyes. I saw it with my eyes. I saw what this country is about and what it's fighting for. I saw it, all the passion of the people who unfurled those flags and screamed for Palestine.
Yeah. So you can watch the entire film on the CPI website. Iranian Dream is the name of the film. It was made for Iranian television in 2015. It's a great film. It just kind of gives you an impression of what Iran is like from the eyes of a Westerner who visits the country because after reading the Supreme Leader's letter to the youth of America. So that's what that was. But, there's some other news to talk about. Obviously, I'm here in Michigan for a rally that's opposing war, and opposing these wars is something the Center for Political Innovation is all about. And there is not only a war in the Middle East, there is a war in Russia. Russia is fighting to defend the new republics, Lugansk, Odessa, Donetsk, from the Ukrainian extremists. In 2014, the United States toppled the Ukrainian government and installed a fanatically anti-Russian government. That government then proceeded to start murdering the people in the eastern parts and the eastern regions that tend to speak Russian in their homes and tend to have a positive view of the Soviet Union, and they started murdering them. This is a monument to all the children that have been killed, that were killed, before the special military operation even began, as the Ukrainian government was slaughtering all the children, all these innocent children, just for being in Russian-speaking areas that declared independence. So now the latest development is that we have the Ukrainian neo-Nazi government unleashed a drone attack on a children's dormitory. 86 children, that go to a boarding school, were sleeping in this dormitory, and the Ukrainian government unleashed a terrorist attack against it with drones and sent 3 waves of drones to target this building. This was not an accident. This was an intentional. They murdered school kids, and Russia called an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council about this obvious war crime committed by the Ukrainian forces. Here we go.
Security Council convened an emergency meeting upon Russia's request following the deadly Ukrainian strike on that school. Moscow's envoy Vasily Nebenzia said the overnight attack was deliberately conducted while children were sleeping in their beds to maximize the number of casualties. He emphasized that this was a war crime.
On the night of May 22nd, armed formations of Ukraine using unmanned aerial vehicles targeted the administrative buildings and the dormitory of the Starobelsk College of Lugansk State Pedagogical University. At the time of the incident, 86 students between the ages of 14 and 18 were reportedly in the dormitory building. As a result, the 5-story building collapsed until the 2nd floor. A number of children are in critical condition in the hospital, and the search continues. There are still children under the rubble. In addition, administrative buildings, shops, and private homes were also damaged in Starobelsk. Russia's investigative committee has opened a criminal case. We have asked the Chinese representative to distribute these crime scene photos to the council members. This deliberate attack on a civilian facility where children study and live, carried out at night when the dormitory was full, was clearly conducted with the aim of maximizing the number of victims. According to international humanitarian law, this is a war crime. The strike could not have been accidental. 3 waves of drones were hitting the same place. This clearly confirms the treachery and incompetence of Kiev, which, with the encouragement of its Western sponsors, is not only not in the mood for a peaceful settlement, but also is openly sabotaging it.
Russia called an emergency meeting of the 15-member body that leads the United Nations to discuss this obvious war crime by Ukrainian forces. Now, the Russian ambassador to Benzia spoke very eloquently, describing how this children's dormitory was targeted by Ukrainian forces, how it was not accidental, and how this incident goes against everything that the United Nations stands for and was founded in order to prevent. He pointed toward the complicity of Western countries that bankroll Ukrainian forces and assist and direct their activities. Now, U.S. officials, the U.S. representative, didn't really admit any concern, seemed to give vague platitudes about wanting to make sure civilians are not harmed, wanting the conflict to de-escalate, but no condemnation of Ukraine's activities. This is the U.S. ambassador and some of what we heard from Russian Ambassador Nebenzia.
We are following the reports of those killed and wounded in Luhansk overnight. Many questions concerning this attack remain outstanding. While we await answers to those questions, we underscore the need for an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire as a means toward a durable, negotiated end to the war. This death and destruction must stop now.
Once again, we have to state that members of the Security Council, Western countries, inflating insinuations and myths about alleged 20,000 abducted Russian and Ukrainian children ignored the criminal actions of the armed forces of Ukraine. They demonstrated similar outrageous double standards in relation to Iranian schoolgirls who died from a U.S. strike in Minab in February, as well as kids in Gaza, which has turned into a children's cemetery.
Now, Latvia is a country that Russia has called out for facilitating Ukrainian military activities and cooperating with Ukraine's military operations targeting Russian civilians. Now, Latvia took the floor of the UN Security Council and didn't seem concerned about Russia calling out its cooperation and its culpability and complicity in today's horrendous events. This is what we heard from the Latvian representative.
Russia has been fabricating pretexts, stalling for time, deliberately undermining any genuine peace effort. Let Russia and its allies remember, accountability for all atrocities committed is not optional. It doesn't have an expiration date. Mr. President, it is outright cynical and shameful that Russia has called this meeting today.
Now, China distributed photographs to the Security Council members showing the horrendous events. We had 86 children in harm's way, 3 waves of drone strikes against the building that they were sleeping in, 6 children dead, children still being pulled out of the rubble as we speak. A very, very horrendous event. And U.S. leaders and representatives of NATO and Western countries only could respond with vague words, while they're perfectly willing to pluck heartstrings and invoke children when it serves their narrative. They didn't seem concerned about the horrendous facts and photographs presented by Russia and China before the Security Council, showing that the way they invoke the lives of children to serve their own ends is somewhat glib.
Yeah, that was my report on yesterday's UN Security Council meeting about this horrendous event that happened, the murder of children by Ukraine. And, where is their outrage? They're always telling stories about Russia kidnapped all these children, which no, they didn't kidnap children, right? Russia, when there's children that are in a conflict zone, they will get them out of there, and then they've worked with the Vatican to reunite them with their families. They're not supposed to leave them on the battlefield. But the idea that Russia is kidnapping children, that is just not happening. But yet Western leaders get up in front of the world and make that claim over and over and over again. But now we have a case of Ukraine murdering and intentionally murdering children, destroying a school. They're just like, oh, we'll look into it. Oh, we'll look into it. Well, that's nice of you to look into it. But I mean, it's like they don't, they've literally banned the Wikipedia page of this monument to all the children killed. They've banned the Wikipedia page. They don't want you to know about this because they basically have decided that, that Ukrainian the lives of these children, Donbass children's lives don't matter. And you're not allowed to know about it. And it's outrageous. And what's even more frustrating is to see people who get all emotionally worked up when they're given permission to by the mainstream media. And then they don't know about this. And so it just doesn't bother them. And if you tell them about it, they go, ooh, I don't know. And they make excuses to not be upset about it. People that are only capable of feeling big emotions when their bosses, when authority figures in America tell them to. That's something that has long frustrated me. Now, the other big news story that happened is there were gunshots near the White House tonight. And that, there were like wild videos going around. It was like live on the news when these gunshots were happening. And the individual, there was an individual with a gun, I guess, who went through a checkpoint and had a shootout with the Secret Service. And, it was live. There's like live recordings on the air of like, the White House press people that are kind of positioned around the White House 24 hours a day, ducking and stuff. And this happened, and no one really knows what this is about. I'll put the video of that on the screen. I mean, there's a couple of videos floating around of mainstream media people like ducking as they hear the gunshots and stuff. So yeah, we'll put, this is the clip that's getting the most attention. It's this TV broadcaster woman in an orange sweater, the orange sweater lady, dodging from the gunshots. Here we go. Here she is. Yeah. Orange sweater lady, newscaster, ducking. And there's a couple other clips that are going around of people that were just, they were on air, and this is, CNN. This was CNN, I guess, that they were on air ducking, when the gunshots happened. I guess we'll put the CNN reporter, this is MSNBC, an MSNBC reporter kind of freezing on air. When she heard the gunshots, she didn't duck, I guess. She just kind of froze. This was her reaction when the gunshots near the White House went down earlier tonight.
Today, but this obviously comes.
Yeah, and I mean, as somebody who works in television, I mean, one of the things you're trained to do is that when there's background noise and you're doing your live hit, you just got to keep going, right? You just got to keep going. I mean, there was a time years ago where I was doing a live hit, and the fire alarm went off in the building I was in, and I just kept going. Right? That's what you do. You don't break. You just keep your eyes on the camera and all of that. So it's kind of interesting to see the reaction. As somebody who works in TV, this is the reaction that these people had to a shootout taking place near them. Right? They heard the gunshots, and So I guess so. Now we have the details of the shooter. The shooter is a man who called himself. I guess his name was Nasir. It was what his name was. His name was Nasir Best, but he called himself Jesus Christ. He believed he was Jesus. He's schizophrenic. I mean, that's schizophrenia, right? And he believed he was Jesus Christ, and Secret Service apparently knew who he was because he'd been making threats and acting suspiciously for quite some time. And I guess he was a person of interest to the Secret Service, before today's incident, so that's interesting. This Nasir Best is the individual, and he's dead. He's dead. I believe, right? He was killed in the shootout, if I'm not mistaken. Was he killed? I believe he was. No, he's in serious condition. He's still alive. Can you believe that? He's still alive after all those shots. He's still alive. Nasir Best was his name, and he was somebody who was a person of interest, to the American Secret Service. People are already wondering if this is like a threat on Trump if he makes peace with Iran, right? People are wondering, was this from Israel? They were trying to prevent him from having peace with Iran. I mean, there's no evidence of that, but people are already saying that because people see how much power Israel has over our government. And so, there you go.
The hill is weakening.
you know, so yeah, that's the incident that happened tonight at the White House. And, you know, it is interesting that Ted Cruz is mad about this potential deal with Iran to end the war. Most of America is mad that this war ever happened to begin with, because there was absolutely no reason for it, no provocation. It was just a completely unnecessary, vicious, murderous war. And most of humanity is angry it ever even happened. But Ted Cruz and the Israel lobby are mad that it might stop. I mean, imagine that. How in your right mind could you be mad that a war might end, for Christ's sakes? But you know, and you know, but the Israel lobby, the Zionists, right? Ted Cruz, who's, you know, as Christian Zionist, fanatical extremist, he's worried that the war in Iran might end. You know, and so then we see a shooting incident at the White House and all of that. And, you know, Ted Cruz's dad, there's that whole thing with Ted Cruz's dad. And this is actually a real photo. And I find this to be interesting. You know, so, you know, it's not related to today's incident. But Ted Cruz's father was a Cuban American who fled from Cuba when Batista was the dictator, backed by the United States. You know, after the Cuban Revolution, he was living in New Orleans, in Miami, or in New Orleans, not in Miami. And in New Orleans, Ted Cruz's dad became a huge admirer of Fidel Castro, and he actually joined the Fair Play for Cuba Committee in New Orleans. And the Fair Play for Cuba Committee was a group formed by the Socialist Workers Party, the Trotskyites, to support Cuba, and they called it the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. And Ted Cruz's dad, as a Cuban American who admired Fidel Castro and was mad at Batista, he joined it, and they went out to hand out leaflets. And there was one day they went out to hand out leaflets, and who came with them? None other than Lee Harvey Oswald. And this is not a fake photo, all right? This is a real photo. There is Lee Harvey Oswald with the leaflets, the guy who shot Kennedy, and there is Ted Cruz's dad. And during the 2016 elections, you know, they did, you know, they released the photos, and it became kind of a thing, right? That Donald Trump released this photograph of Ted Cruz's dad with Lee Harvey Oswald. And it's not a fake photograph. Obviously, this doesn't prove that Ted Cruz's dad had anything to do with killing Kennedy, but it lines up completely. Ted Cruz's dad supported Fidel Castro, was in the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, lived in New Orleans, and he and Lee Harvey Oswald went out leafleting one day. And then the story goes that Ted Cruz's dad moved back to Cuba, had a falling out with the communist government, defected to Canada, and then eventually moved back to the United States. And now Ted Cruz's dad is some, you know, crazy Pentecostal Zionist pastor in Texas, and his son became a politician. But, you know, Ted Cruz's dad and Lee Harvey Oswald were photographed together. That is a fact. That is not a conspiracy theory. It is just a reality that Ted Cruz's dad and, you know, and Lee Harvey Oswald hung out. I mean, that actually happened. This is not a fake photograph. Not a fake photograph. So since we're talking about Ted Cruz, and since there's just been this indictment of the Cuban leader, and since, you know, Ted Cruz is speaking up on social media about how angry he is, there might be a peace treaty with Iran. And now, I mean, it's kind of relevant to bring this up, you know, it's kind of relevant to bring this up, you know, about Ted Cruz's dad having ties to Lee Harvey Oswald and all of this. I just thought I might mention that in light of everything that's happening. Ted Cruz is angry that there might be peace. There's rumors of a peace deal happening with Iran, and he's mad about it. And then there's a big crazy shooting at the White House. Well, let's not forget that Ted Cruz's dad was photographed with Lee Harvey Oswald. Not a good look. Not a good look for you, Ted. I would tone down your anti-peace rhetoric at this time, right? Just not a good look for you, right? Based on your family background and a lot of things, Ted, I would turn down the anti-peace rhetoric right now because a lot of people are already saying that this shooting, you know, against Trump came from Israel. There's no evidence of that. I guess they're reporting the guy was a guy named Nasser Best who thought he's Jesus and he's surviving. And, there's no evidence of that. But people are already saying that this is Israel threatening Trump to prevent the peace deal. I'm not saying that, but that's all over the internet. People are saying that. And with Ted Cruz's family history, something that Donald Trump did highlight during the election, if I was Ted Cruz, I would drop the topic. I would let, how do I put this? I would let a peace deal happen, right? If it was happening. So yeah, that's what I would do. That's my word of advice to Ted Cruz based on his family history. There's some people that think that the Fair Play for Cuba committee was a CIA thing from the beginning, because one of the key leaders of the Fair Play for Cuba committee is Jack Barnes, who is the leader of the Socialist Workers Party. And the people at the World Socialist website, the people who run what's called the World Socialist website, they maintain that Jack Barnes, the leader of the SWP, was a CIA agent, based on the fact that he went to Cuba with the Ford Foundation before he became a socialist. Right, that right after the Cuban Revolution, they sponsored him to visit Cuba. The Ford Foundation, which is a known CIA, foundation, they sponsored him to go to Cuba. And he was not a socialist. He just attended this college. He was just a student at a liberal college called Carleton. And, this Carleton College in Minneapolis sponsored him to go to Cuba, arranged for him as a Ford Foundation guy to go to Cuba. And so there's this pamphlet you can read, the Carrollton 12, and they maintain that the Fair Play for Cuba committee, it was actually a CIA entity, right? And I guess that, the Communist Party was the organization aligned with Moscow, and that the Cuban government originally had a relationship with, but the Trotskyites were able to establish a relationship with Cuba and promote Cuba while they had an anti-Soviet political line. And I guess the World Socialist website maintains that the Fair Play for Cuba committee was always a CIA front. Now, I can't stand by that, but I do find the argument, that the U.S. SWP, that it's been taken over by the CIA or something like that. That's what they argue in this pamphlet, and they make a pretty strong case for it, kind of interestingly. But anyhow, I do want to remind people, if you have any questions for the second half of the show, please go to buymeacoffee.com and send questions, or you can you can send a super chat. Super chats work. We're monetized again. Or you can go to you can do a Rumble rant, or you can cash at me at CalebRoffin22. But send questions for the second half of the show. I've got one more thing I'm going to talk about here, and then I'm going to start doing the roll call and start answering questions. The last thing is, I rushed to the airport today. I couldn't even get on our CPI meeting. We had a great meeting from what I'm seeing in the reports, but I couldn't go to the CPI members meeting because I had to rush to the airport, and I'm here in Michigan to cover the rally tomorrow. But before I left, I did an interview with an African TV network, Pan-African Media, and they had me on. If you want to check out, it's based in Cameroon. Is this TV network in Africa? If you want to check out their Twitter, they're on Twitter, on X. I guess it's not Twitter anymore. Pan-African Media TV, they're called, and they had me on, and I couldn't even stay for the whole program. I couldn't stay for the whole program because I had to run to the airport, but they did have me on, and it was a real honor to go on their show. If you want to follow them on Twitter, Pan-Africa Media TV, they had me on. And so this was my contribution to their show today. They did a show comparing the visit of Donald Trump and the visit to Russian President Putin to China. And so they had me on, and to just give my opinion on the topic. So this is my segment on African television this morning. I was an honored guest representing my organization, the Center for Political Innovation. So this is what I had to say. Here we go.
Meeting, we could really tell that the USA went for a red carpet show, but we can't really tell that there was an outcome from this visit. So, Mr. Caleb, could you tell us what's the essence of having this kind of a meeting and getting out of it after visiting China, one of the power brokers at the time, and there is nothing to show for by the United States President Donald Trump, whereas we can see over 40 cooperation agreements that were being agreed and signed between Beijing and Moscow.
Well, you can contrast the two visits, the visit of Russian President Putin to Beijing and the visit of Trump. It is no accident that one came after another. And Donald Trump came back with nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. They had this whole thing that the New York Times was talking about, the 4 Bs and the 4 Ts, and nothing came of it. And the response, of Donald Trump and Marco Rubio's team is they said, well, China said that Iran will never get a nuclear weapon and doesn't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Well, Iran has said they will never get a nuclear weapon. They've said that for 47 years. That has been their position. That may change as a result of the vicious U.S. attack, but they have never proliferated nuclear weapons. They've never violated the International Atomic Energy Agency's restrictions under the treaty. And so for China to say that they would like Iran as a signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty to continue to fulfill their obligations under the treaty, that's not a huge victory by any means. That's just a standard position. And part of the deception of the U.S. war against Iran is this claim that somehow Iran is trying to get a nuclear weapon and somehow convincing, China to agree that they shouldn't was some victory. I mean, this is just something, intended for very ignorant American audiences. The other thing is that China said they want the Strait of Hormuz to be opened. Well, the whole world wants the Strait of Hormuz to be open because the oil prices right now are through the roof. And Iran also wants the Strait of Hormuz to be open, but they want to make sure that they have their security protected. And when they're being bombed and when they're in an active war with the United States that murdered their supreme leader and blew up the elementary school in Manab and killed all kinds of young schoolgirls, they have to respond militarily. And at this point, the big question hanging over the world economy is the fact that there's another strait, a strait very close to Yemen. I don't want to mispronounce the name, but if that strait were to close down, in addition to the Strait of Hormuz, if the Ansar Allah Houthi organization were able to move ahead and close that strait down, the world economy would scream even louder than it's screaming right now. So Trump came back with absolutely nothing. That China wants the Strait of Hormuz opened. So does everybody, including Iran. China doesn't want Iran to get a nuclear bomb. So does everyone that signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, including Iran. Trump had nothing. Whereas, if you look at Russian President Putin, he came back from Beijing with a very powerful statement about the emerging multipolar world. That declaration that we saw from China and Russia was very, very powerful, pointing towards the need for a new economy beyond the old colonial order. It pointed towards the possibility of eradicating poverty, a world beyond the golden billion that live in luxury while so many countries remain underdeveloped. And that was very, very exciting. And as a patriotic American, I must say that the only future my country can ever have is to align itself with this rising new economy and get further and further away from France and Britain and Italy and Germany and all the old colonial powers of Europe. And as we celebrate the 250-year anniversary of our country coming up in July, we should remember that our founders fought against the British Empire system and that they wanted development. Now, unfortunately, that development involved, slavery. It involved taking land from Native Americans. But the essence of the American Revolution 250 years ago was a demand for economic growth. They wanted to grow. The British Empire wanted America to just be a temporary trading hub in their global sea-based empire. And the founders of the United States, for various reasons, wanted an actual strong economy and industrialization of the American continent. And that was the essence. And that's what countries all over the world right now that are aligned with the BRICS want. They want development, whereas the British have decided there are too many people in the world and they're just going to keep the world poor in order to keep themselves rich, have the entire world centered around their mighty financial center. Well, humanity is rejecting that. America should reject it as well. And that's why my hope is that something can come of the talks between the U.S. government officials and Kirill Dmitriev about the Bering Sea tunnel. If we could build a tunnel connecting Alaska with the Russian Far East, that would be one step
toward America getting closer toward the rising new economy in the East, one step further away from the dying NATO order. And I look with great admiration to Ibrahim Traore and everything happening in the Union of Sahel states. That is the future of the African continent. It's the future of the world. Africa is the future. Gaddafi's Green Book, before he was murdered, he published, and he had published a very important ideological text, the Green Book, and it said, black people will prevail in the world. And it pointed out that the African continent, with its resources and its rising population, is where the wealth of the world is going to come in the coming centuries. And I think we're seeing that. Africa is the future. Russia and China are aligned with Africa and rising. America has continued to align with the colonizers, with the British Empire, and with the Zionists. And if we continue to go in this bad direction, we're going to sink with them. We're going to go down with them like the orchestra that was playing as the Titanic sank. So monopoly coalition, pro-growth coalition of people who want development, people who see the rising new economy not as something to oppose, not as a competitor, but rather as an opportunity for America to engage with China, with Russia, with all the countries of the world in win-win. The Center for Political Innovation, my organization, puts forward, and we have put that forward across America with our outreach, and we intend to continue to do so. I'm about to head to the airport and go to a rally in Michigan where Joe Kent, the former U.S. counterterrorism director, who stepped down in opposition to Trump's attack on Iran, will be speaking, and I'm hoping to be there at the rally to speak with him and others that are opposing the war moves that the U.S. government has carried out, the threats against Iran, the threats now against the island of Cuba, the violations of the sovereignty of Venezuela, the kidnapping of their leader, to regime change and wars and interventions and propping up the dying British Empire system around the world. What we need is a government of action that will fight for working families and engage in win-win cooperation, productive trade around the world.
Needs a cooperation that is mutual, that is a win-win. Caleb, like you just highlighted, pointing the African continent in the preamble, we said this, that when major leaders are meeting to see how they can actually readjust their own preamble or the stakes of diplomacy in their respective nations to be made relevant in the world of multipolarity, in the world where we no longer talk the old the rules-based order, but then where we see the alternative of the rules-based order and how we're supposed to take it constructively to give more meaning to this philosophy that the world is a global village.
Yeah, that was me on Cameroonian television, Pan-African media in Cameroon. And, you know, there's not a day that goes by that I'm not either on RT or on Press TV or on television in Africa with some Middle Eastern TV network. The analysis that we bring as the Center for Political Innovation is widely respected. We have an understanding with our anti-imperialist perspective that is widely respected in the world. We are tuned in to the rising new economy, to the important international trends. You know, the new book that I've put out compiles a lot of speeches that I've given, not just speeches before American audiences, though there's plenty of those, but also a speech I gave in Iran, the speech I gave in Brazil, a speech I gave in Russia, an article that I wrote that was republished in North Korea's daily newspaper. You know, the analysis that we put forward, our anti-imperialist, anti-monopoly, innovationist perspective is very, very widely celebrated and respected around the world. The Center for Political Innovation has something very, very special to offer. So on that note, folks, I see we got some Rumble Rant questions that have come in, but I really need you all to send questions for the second half of the show. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin, that's the best way to send questions. We can also do super chats. We can also do Rumble Rants. We've got a couple of those. You can, you know, cash at me, whatever you want to do. But the best way to send questions, buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. Names and locations, names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations, names and locations. Who is with us? Names and locations. John McCarthy in Chicago. Penny in Minnesota. Who else is with us tonight? Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Alex in Brazil. Ryan in Kansas City. Liverpool, UK. John in Florida. Names and locations. Names and locations. Patch in Arizona. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Names and locations. Auckland, New Zealand. Patch in Arizona. Briggy in Pennsylvania. Cameron, not Cameroon, that's a country. Cameron in New Hampshire. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Zarius, Sagittarius. All right, that's very Greek. George Washington was a 33-degree Mason. Okay, that's not your name or your location, is it? On the R. Good to see you, David, on the R. The South, Huey Long, JT24 in Mississippi. LOL, it was a joke. All right. There you go. Names and locations. Names and location. Jed and I are relaxing Longueu's aliside a cement pond in Beverly Hills, right? So that's a reference to Beverly Hillbillies, the television program. Kew Gardens, New York. Checkpoint Charlie, good to see you. On the road. On the road. On the road. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Sagittarius A is the galaxy's central black hole. For the Far East, Samuel in the Russian Far East is watching tonight. Good to see you, Samuel. Good to have you with us. Good to have you with us. Anybody else? Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Yeah, Jenny Lynn just messaged me and saying she's banned. How is Jenny Lynn banned? That doesn't make any sense. Jenny Lynn, what's going on with that? Maybe some of the people in the chat can see what's going on with that. That is a very, very odd thing. YouTube is very, very strange like that. At one point, we did have like an amnesty where I basically unbanned everyone who'd been banned from the chat. At one point, because there was some, people get caught in the crossfire occasionally. So let me go to settings and see, what's going on there. Community moderation. Okay. User management. Okay. Hidden users. I don't, right. I don't see you in the hidden users, Jenny. But there's that's just really, really odd. If there's a mod who can unban her, that would be great. If not, I will look into it. Jenny Lynn is a pretty regular here. I can't imagine that she would be banned. Can't imagine she would be banned for doing anything. I see nothing, Jenny. That is very, very odd. But yeah, if the mods could unban her, that's just a very, very odd thing. Free Jenny. Yeah, seriously. I guess I could just do the thing where I unban everybody, which is what I often do. I just, I just unban everybody. But anyhow, yeah. Yeah. Okay. She says, I wonder if it's a YouTube thing. Very strange. Yeah, that's just very, very odd. I don't know why that's happening. So maybe I'll just go through here, and I don't see her name on the list of people banned. I don't see her. I see the list of banned accounts, and I don't see her on the list anywhere. I generally, she's a mod, if I'm not mistaken, right? She's a mod, right? So she should be a manager, right? But I don't see her as a mod either, right? Which is odd, right? So why is she not a mod, right? Isn't she a mod, right? Isn't Jenny Lynn a mod, right? So, okay, so, okay, all right. That is so odd. Okay, so she wants me to unban her. So she's a mod. So why is she, so I don't know. Okay, this is odd. Well, let me see if she's in the hidden users, right? Let me see if I can find. This is odd. This is very, very odd. I'm in the thing, and I cannot find that account. So and she should be a mod, right? So okay, what's going on here, right? If I type your name in and I don't see that. So that's very odd. All right, we're gonna have to figure this out later. Sorry to hear that, Jenny. Sorry to hear that you're having this difficulty, but I'm trying to figure out how to solve it. But anyhow, if anyone has any questions, please send them in. Buy me a coffee is the best way. We did get a couple Rumble rants that have come in. Penny sent 2 videos, and then Leo Messi sent he sent basically a racist video, and he wants me to show it, and I'm not going to show it on here. And like, come on, Leo. Like, I mean, I'm just looking at what the video is about. You really want me to show that? Come on. I mean, I generally will show things, but the title of this video is I'm not even going to repeat it. You just sent me a racist video. You want me to show a racist video on here? I ain't going to do that, Leo. Try that on somebody else's account. Come on, man. Like what? Like, how is that helpful? But Penny sent a good video, China's End of Feudalism. So we'll put that on. Penny sent 2 videos. And yeah, if anyone else has anything else to show, by all means, that's what we like to do here. We do like to, respond to people's questions, etc. So there we go. So yeah, I am on the hotel Wi-Fi here. So, it may take me a little longer to get the videos downloaded. But hopefully we can get them downloaded. And yeah, we're downloading Penny's video right now called China's End to Feudalism. So we'll put that on. So yeah, this guy Leo Messi, who's in the Rumble chat, he's been I don't know, he's probably somebody from the far right, and he's said far right stuff before, and I generally will answer people's questions even if they're coming from a different place. But I'm not going to show a racist video. Just not going to do it. I'm just not going to do that. That would be insulting, and it would be disrespectful to the many people in our audience that are not white. And I'm just not going to show, eugenics kind of crap on this channel. I'm just not going to do that. That would be a very nasty, bigoted thing to do. And I just, like, why would you ask me to do that, Leo Messi? Like, what? I mean, what did, why would I, come on, man. I'm starting to sound like Joe Biden there. Come on, man. So, yeah. So I don't know. Takes all kinds. I see Claire, secular Quranism, she's mad at me, and she's like tweeting at me about how I'm a fool for supporting representative democracy. And she wants to have a debate with me about the U.S. Constitution and the merits of representative democracy. And that has nothing to do with what I talk about on here. And it's like, she's owning me. She's tweeted at me like 16 times, like owning me for believing in representative democracy. And she doesn't. It's like, okay, just keep going, so I don't know. They say everything is in the eye of the beholder, right? You take your own bias to everything. That's just how everything works, right? Is that people have their biases, and you take your own bias to everything. But I don't know. It's pretty wild, but I'm glad to be here in Michigan. Look, I'm really hoping that things go well tomorrow. I can talk to some good people. This is an important anti-war event. I'm looking forward to it. And so, yeah, we're waiting for Penny's video to download. It's rather slow because we're on the hotel Wi-Fi. but hopefully Penny's video comes soon. I'm just looking at the progress here. You know, it's at 38 megabytes out of 90 megabytes. So, you know, it's just coming right along. We'll put on Penny's video, and I'll start the second one while that one's playing. But yeah, like I said before, anyone who's got any questions, buy me a coffee is the best way to send questions. But you know, let's debate what other people might have done in that hotel bed. Why would you think about that? Why would you think about that? I will say, you know, I'm not going to say which hotel I'm at, but one thing that I don't like in hotels is when they have non-carpeted floors. They have this like fake wood plastic on the floor, right? Like, you know, it's like this, right? You know, it's like the fake wood. This isn't real wood, right? And they have fake wood on the walls, and they got fake wood plastic floor. And I know the reason they do that is because it's easier to clean. You can just come in here with a mop and all that. But it's something about when you have a hotel room with the fake wood plastic floor, and it's like you can hear my voice is kind of echoing right now. There's no carpet here. It's like, come on, man. You know, this is a decent hotel, but you know, I mean, whatever. I don't know. So, you know, anyhow, I guess I won't talk about the circumstances of my trip too much. You know, you don't want to talk too much about business on calls like this. But basically, I'm covering the rally that's happening tomorrow. Penny's video is downloading. It's downloading. It's at 74 megabytes out of 90. So hopefully it's here soon. And here we go. Here we go. Penny's video on the end of feudalism. End of feudalism. All right. Thanks for sending this video, Penny. And I will start downloading the second video while this one's on because that one took so long. So end of feudalism in China. Video recommended by Penny. Here we go.
In feudal Xizang society, the nobility and senior monks had monopolized all the region's arable land and livestock. Serfs, on the other hand, who accounted for over 90% of the population, had been the private property of their masters and could be bought, sold, used, tortured, and even murdered at will. The situation was transformed by Xizang's peaceful liberation in May 1951. Democratic reforms implemented by the central government included the abolition of the system of feudal serfdom. These priceless images reveal the genuine joy on the faces of former serfs as they burned their deeds of bondage and debt contracts. The reforms also consigned to history the Potala Palace's role at the heart of the old Xizang society. In December 1994, after an inspection had concluded that a recent renovation had made a significant contribution to the protection of Tibetan and world culture, the Potala Palace was designated by UNESCO as a World Cultural Heritage Site. No longer private property, today the Potala Palace is a vast site of historical and cultural importance that's open to visitors from around the world.
Right. So before we show the next video, I've got a lot to say about that. So if you want to read about the overthrow, the reason this is important, right, is because there's a whole mythology that's been created that somehow Tibet under the Dalai Lama was a paradise and the communists ruined it. You know, there's a lot of Hollywood people that really love the, you know, the Dalai Lama and the myth that Tibet was like this glorious, peaceful kingdom and the communists went in there and destroyed it. That is a big part of Hollywood. There's a really good book called When the Serfs Stood Up in Tibet by Anna Louise Strong. I love Anna Louise Strong. She's my favorite writer by far. And she went to Tibet in the 1950s. And you can read the whole book online for free, When the Serfs Stood Up in Tibet. It's a great, great book about how Tibet, you know, got rid of feudalism. And that's the book I would recommend. And it just goes into great detail about the struggle to overturn feudalism in Tibet and what the Dalai Lama's kingdom was like and the struggle to overturn it. And a lot of interviews with peasants that participated in it. And the part of the myth that the Tibet separatists have made is they say, well, it's an ethnic thing, right? The Han Chinese went into Tibet and oppressed the Tibetan people and all that. The people who were tearing down religious sites and stuff, they were largely Tibetans. They were tearing down symbols of the feudal system that had oppressed them. It was actually Tibetan people that took revenge against the monks and the monastic class that have been oppressing them, etc. And they don't want people to know that. Another person that visited Tibet and observed the overthrow of feudalism, while we're on this topic, Penny, was W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois is the most well-respected African-American scholar of the early 20th century. And if you go to college and you study race studies, you're going to read Souls of Black Folk, you're going to read his writing. And W.E.B. Du Bois went to Tibet when feudalism was being overturned and observed it directly. This is a film of W.E.B. Du Bois in China that I was able to find. Here we go.
When I returned in 1959, China had been revolutionized. China belonged to China, and the white masters were gone. The Chinese multi-millions were at work. They were laughing and sweating. Women had an equality with men such as America could not duplicate.
Premier Zhou Enlai receives Dr. Du Bois, eminent Negro scholar of the United States and member of the World Peace Council, together with his wife, the writer Shirley Graham, chairman of the China Peace Committee Guoma Ro, vice president of the Chinese People's Association for Cultural Relations with Foreign Countries, Ding Xiling, and other prominent figures in Chinese life. February 23, 1959 is Dr. Du Bois's 91st birthday. A birthday celebration is held for him by more than 1,000 professors and students of Peking University.
China is no utopia. They will not be rich in old age, but they will eat. They will not enjoy sickness, but they will be given care. They will not starve as thousands of Chinese did only a generation ago. They fear neither flood nor epidemic.
A Chinese saying goes, from ancient times, it is rare for a person to reach 70. 91 is even rarer and more admirable. Our distinguished guest, with his fighting life of 91 years, is particularly commendable. Dr. Du Bois expresses his appreciation in his reply. On this gala occasion, everybody is eager to toast the health of Dr. Du Bois. At Wuhan on March 13th, Chairman Mao Zedong, the great leader of the Chinese people, receives Dr. Du Bois, Mrs. Du Bois, and the American writer Anna Louise Strong. Chairman Mao Zedong has dinner with the guests. This has been an expression of the warmest welcome of the Chinese people to Dr. Du Bois, the eminent Negro scholar of the United States. Let us repeat, welcome, Dr. Du Bois.
They do not even fear war. As Mao Zedong told me, war for China is a paper tiger.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, part of the reason that, I would talk about people like W.B. Du Bois and such is, there is this arrogance for people who don't know any better. They'll say things like, only an idiot would be a communist. It's like, you think W.B. Du Bois was an idiot, the most well-respected African-American scholar? You think he was an idiot? You think Albert Einstein was an idiot? And that, I guess, one of the things that has always annoyed me with the anti-communism of a lot of Americans is that there is just this assumption that, there couldn't possibly be any strong argument in favor against their position. And so, that's why people like W.B. Du Bois, I used to talk about them a little bit more, and stuff. But Penny also sent another video that was called Chinese Solutions. So I'll put that on. It's called Chinese Solutions. And I did download that earlier. Put that on. And then we'll answer any more questions that people have.
Cuban streets witness a constant movement of electric scooters and tricycles. These have become popular passenger and cargo transportation means. People now queue at bus stops to board not a bus, but an electric tricycle to travel across the town. The introduction of electric tricycles amidst the energy crisis caused by U.S. sanctions has brought with it a new source of employment for drivers here. These vehicles carry up to 6 passengers, each on specific routes covering limited distances depending on their range. Then they must be plugged into the power grid for charging. But widespread power cuts caused by the energy crisis made it difficult for vehicles to be fully charged at times. Then, 21-year-old entrepreneur Yadan Espinosa came up with a solution, placing solar panels on vehicles.
This business came thanks to an idea I had when I saw a tricycle coming and I thought it could bear a panel. I made the calculations and saw that it would be efficient. So during the panel installation I provide the clients with everything so they don't have to search for any materials or cables or panels. It's a turnkey project.
In his workshop on the outskirts of Havana, Espinosa and his brothers gathered parts to construct the structure where the 650-watt Chinese solar panels would eventually be placed on the vehicles.
The solar panel attached to the electric tricycle's roof extends the vehicle's range while also charging its battery. And most importantly, it does so with no need to depend on the country's shaky power grid and frequent outages.
I came with these young men because they do an excellent job. They install these panels which extend the vehicle's battery lifespan. It's an environmentally friendly process, helps save electricity as we don't have to plug into the grid, particularly under the current energy crisis.
Cuba assembles electric tricycles from China to use for cargo passenger transportation or to take patients to healthcare centers as a vital alternative for public transportation amid the energy crisis. Following the U.S. oil blockade in January, Cuba has only received one shipment of oil from Russia in late March. Some 730,000 barrels of oil has already been used. So far, no other oil deliveries have been announced by authorities. Meantime, Yadan Espinosa's solar panel business has contributed to local passenger transportation alternatives, and it is one solution that addresses the country's severe energy crisis, as clean energy transition is priority. Luis Chirino, CGTN, Havana.
At a port in Qingdao, workers are preparing for the annual sea lettuce collection season. Unlike traditional fertilizer makers, this company gets its raw materials from the sea. Every summer, huge amounts of sea lettuce wash onto China's coastline, damaging marine ecosystems and creating costly cleanup challenges. Now, researchers are turning that problem into a resource. The sea lettuce is processed into biological fertilizer. Researchers say using natural occurring sea lettuce rather than cultivated marine plants also cuts costs and reduces environmental pressure. But the process is challenging. Fresh sea lettuce contains large amounts of water and sand. and can begin decomposing within hours of leaving the ocean.
We developed our own harvesting boats, drying systems, and dehydration equipment. More than 50 related technologies have now received national patents.
The fertilizer is now sold across China and exported to more than 60 countries and regions. Researchers say more fertilizer companies are beginning to incorporate marine biomaterials into their products.
Our laboratory is developing new technologies to improve soil conditions. We hope these fertilizers and biostimulants can help increase China's grain production in a more sustainable way.
Inside the lab, researchers demonstrated the difference with a simple soil test. Soil treated with the sea lettuce product appeared looser and more breathable than soil treated with conventional fertilizer. And that creates a better environment for roots and microorganisms underground. Farmers say they are seeing similar changes in the field. In Qingdao's Pingdu area, wheat farmer Wang Chengfei says the soil has become noticeably softer after several years of using sea lettuce fertilizer.
The soil used to become very hard and compacted. Now, it's much softer than before.
China now has more than 4,500 biofertilizer companies nationwide. Researchers say the industry is moving toward greener and more precise farming technologies, aimed at increasing crop production while reducing environmental pressure.
Yeah, well, both of those videos were great. One was about how China is working with Cuba to develop, vehicles powered by solar panels. That was really great. And also the one about increasing crop production and the fertilizer. Well, they never invent anything. They just stole it all from America. I mean, they clearly invent a lot. But anyhow, folks, I don't see any further questions, and it is late. It's almost 11:30, and I'm on the road. So I did want to check in with you all. Hopefully the rally goes well tomorrow, and then I'll be back in New York City soon. So I wish you all the best. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm going to put on the closing music, and we'll be back. We'll be back. All right.
A new upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.